The defendant is present. All counsel are present. Jury and also present. Mr. Baker, you're still under oath. People may continue.
If you didn't discuss committing the murder of Fabio Sementilli with Monica prior to the murder, how did you know that your plan might backfire? How did you know that your plan might do that? I mean, how did you account for that? Like, what if she, after the murder, decided she couldn't afford to live here and move back to Canada?
Sorry, counsel. That is a compound.
Did you consider, if you're telling the jury that you didn't discuss your plan with Monica to kill Fabio, that after the murder, she might move back to Canada?
She might have.
So wouldn't you have been in a better position to continue the relationship where you could see her whenever pretty much Fabio was at work or traveling?
I thought about it.
And?
Yeah, it could have went either way.
So you told us that you thought by getting him out of the way that you would be able to have Monica all to yourself, right?
True.
But if she moved back to Canada, you wouldn't have her at all.
Very
right?
true. That's also true.
So then what was your plan? What was your plan B?
There was no plan B.
No plan B.
No.
So if she left, she left.
Nothing I could do about it.
I see. So you went to all of these great lengths to set up this murder and bring in Chris Austin and all of the things you've told us about over the last several days on the chance that somehow Monica would be able to find a way to stay in the United States and in California with you.
Well, I knew she was gonna. I knew that she definitely wanted to be in the United States because she was talking about the daughters staying in school. So I knew she was going to stay in the United States, regardless whatever happens anywhere.
Okay. Do you recall, after your arrest, being placed into a cell that you talked about with Monica with a cellmate?
Could have been. I don't remember.
Do you remember telling your cellmate to be careful what he talked about because the cell contained cameras and recorders?
Probably. I don't remember.
Do you remember telling your cellmate everything that you say is being watched and recorded?
We all think that way, yeah.
You thought that?
I don't remember saying it, but we all think that way.
Okay. I'm just asking what you thought.
I always think we're being recorded.
Okay. And did you also tell your cellmate that you know how to work the system?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember the cellmate. I've had a few cellmates, so you gotta help me out with that.
Well, it was the date you were arrested, as I said on this case in Vienna.
Okay, I got you. I don't remember that conversation.
When you were talking to your cellmate, did you tell your cellmate that you don't know anything about this murder and that I have no idea why the motherfuckers think it's me?
I don't remember saying it, but I probably would say something like that.
Did you tell them some woman's dude got killed? in a home invasion robbery or some shit?
Again, I don't remember the conversation, but I probably would say something like that.
Did you refer to Monica as your confidant and your friend?
I don't remember.
Does it sound like something you would say?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember saying, I'm trying to keep her cool. I'm trying to see how she feels. She's like a confidant, friend, you know?
I don't remember the conversation.
Okay. Did you tell your cellmate that law enforcement had the wrong motherfucker?
I don't remember the conversation.
Does that sound like you?
Could have been.
Do you remember telling your cellmate Fabio was a big-time celebrity exec? This motherfucker was high profile. He was big time.
I don't remember that.
Did you tell your cellmate, it ain't me? I know it ain't me.
I don't remember the conversation.
Okay. Do you remember telling us earlier today that you had probably around 5 interviews with the defense?
Yes.
So,
Do you remember when the first one was?
No.
Do you remember when the first one was in relation to your plea in this case, which was July 7th of 2023?
I don't remember the exact dates.
Okay. How about August 7th of 2023? Remember that?
I don't remember dates. I don't log this stuff down.
Okay. Do you remember that in the first interview, you talked about the letter that you wrote to Monica?
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I had a lot of discussions, but I'm sure we talked about it.
Showing you people 628.
I think that's defense.
It is. Sorry, defense 628. You recognize the writing here?
Yes.
Whose writing is that?
It's mine.
And this is the letter we talked about yesterday, right? Where you told us that you spent an entire day writing this letter, right?
I spent some time, yeah. I wrote the letter.
You wrote it.
I wrote it.
And you gave it to the defense.
Yes.
And this was your attempt to apologize to Monica, right? For killing her husband.
To make it easy for you, yes.
I'm sorry?
To make it easy for you, yes.
Okay. Well, I don't want you to make it easy for me. Is that what your intent was? Isn't that
No,
what you told the
because-
defense on direct?
No, I'm just making it easier for you so that way you can say it's me who
Objection,
wrote it.
non-responsive. Move to strike.
Stricken.
Again, did you tell the defense on direct that this was your attempt at an apology?
Probably.
And then did you give it to the defense to give to Monica?
Yes.
And so here you wrote that you have a lot to say, right? And the first paragraph that I'm pointing to here, as much as I want to apologize to say I'm sorry of what happened to him, you and everyone else, it will never be enough for me to emphasize, especially to you, right?
Yes, what I wrote.
And in the letter, you knew that the murder occurred in January, right? You wrote January 2017 when this all happened. Right?
I wrote it.
Is that what you wrote?
Yeah, because I didn't even know the date.
Okay, but you wrote January 2017.
Yes.
So you knew the month.
Yeah.
And you knew the year.
Yes.
And you said your intent was actually to deliver a gift for Monica's birthday, right?
Correct.
However, unknowing it was an unforeseen disaster, right? Is that what you wrote?
That's what I wrote.
And then you said it got worse, right?
A disaster for which I feel horrible. It got worse. Yes.
Okay. And then you wrote, it was supposed to have been a good thing, but it went horribly wrong. Right?
I wrote that.
Okay. And then you said, who could you tell? Who could you explain this to? No one, right?
Talking about me, yes.
And then you said the incident, meaning the murder, plummeted you into your own mental chaos, right?
It did.
And then you said, further down, I am sincerely, deeply sorry, right?
Correct.
And then you wrote about, in this letter, about how you and Monica did various niceties of dropping notes on our cars or places that was personal, right?
Yes.
Slipping cards, mementos, and gifts.
Correct.
And that you prided yourself on turning up the niceties a notch at times, right?
Yes.
That you would leave notes, cards, gifts in or on a car she would drive all over the valley.
If I could.
I'm sorry?
Yes, that's what I wrote.
And that placing drawn posters with messages only she would know were hers, placed on routes she'd travel, right?
Yes, I wrote that.
And then on the back of page 1, you wrote that I drop in on you in places. I think you wrote here, by accident. Just to let you know you're thought of, right?
I wrote it.
And you said to show you how special she is. Lunches, dinners, spa days, spoil you days, little shopping sprees, spontaneous little things, right?
I wrote it.
And then you started talking about her birthday in 2017, where you gave her a gift, right?
I wrote it.
Okay. And then you said that because she had commitments and couldn't really do a dinner or lunch, to make it a sort of ceremony, that you had a grander gift of a necklace, ring, designer card, right? That you wanted to give her.
I wrote that.
And you said when I gave you that in passing gift, you hinted before all this happened that you had more gifts for her, right?
I wrote that.
And that you were going to find a way to make her birthday special, correct?
I wrote that.
And you said you were going to wait for an opportunity to give her the gift,
I wrote that.
right?
I wrote all this.
Yes? And then you said you needed to put them somewhere, these gifts that you bought for her, these additional presents, somewhere that she would find it, right?
I wrote that.
And that you had an idea. right?
I wrote all this.
You said you had a little impromptu drop-off plan. Package the gifts up, place it under the seat of her car, right?
I wrote that.
And then you said that that would require a lot of surveillance. And asking a smart woman too many questions on her whereabouts will sound alarm bells, right?
I wrote that.
So then you said, when you told us just a couple minutes ago that you didn't know the date, in here you wrote the date, right? Days before the 23rd of January.
Yeah, I always kind of knew what the date was, but I didn't really know the dates.
But yet you wrote it.
I know, I get that. I really don't know dates that well, but go ahead, yeah.
Okay. But you knew it here, right?
Okay.
And so you said that you coordinated that a package was going to be delivered to her on a league night, right? Racquetball league night. Correct?
I wrote that.
And that you plan to have it dropped off at the gym. And if that wasn't done that night, it was going to be placed under the seat of the Mustang in the driveway as a last resort by a paid deliverer. Correct?
That's what I wrote.
And then you wrote how it was difficult to accomplish this, right?
That's what I wrote.
The deliverer that you contacted wasn't available, so you were forced to wait for another time, right?
That's what I wrote.
And you said the opportunity came up on the 23rd of January. Again, the date.
That's what I wrote.
And you said that instead of dropping it off on the windshield, you were going to bring it to her home, right?
That's what I wrote.
And you talked about how you met to play racquetball, that Monica mentioned she was barely able to squeeze racquetball in because her day was filled with busyness and errands, right?
Says the opportunity presented itself, you and I met to play racquetball. Okay.
And you said the more you listened, you got the feeling that everyone at the house was going out running errands also, right?
Yes.
So you said you saw the potential to deliver the present.
Yes.
And so basically you told Monica that you were planning to drop off a gift to her at the home, right?
That was the intent of the letter.
Okay. And you talked about placing some jewelry and a card somewhere in the house where she would be surprised, right?
That's what I wrote.
And you said it had to be in a place where she would find it and no one else would stumble across it, right?
That's what I wrote in
So
this
you
letter.
decided that you were going to place this gift and this designer card on her pillow, on her bed,
I just wrote that in the letter.
right? And your plan was to drop it off and then text her to check under her pillow. Right?
That's what I wrote.
And then you go on to talk about how you had it in your racquetball bag and you were worried she would see it in your bag. Remember?
Do I remember? No, I just remember. I'm just looking at. I agree. That's what I wrote.
Okay. And then you talked in length about how you had to rinse your hand off from this racquetball injury, and that she was trying to help you, that you made a mess with towels and water, right?
That's what I wrote.
When you were asked about it here, when I asked you about it yesterday, you talked about putting your hand in your mouth and then putting a Band-Aid over it, right?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
We just didn't go into detail, but that's what you. I only answer what you ask.
I see. And then you said that Monica took a plastic bag from you with the towels home with her, right?
That's what I put out. That's what I put on the letter.
And your mind was already on getting the gift to her. So everything else was forgotten, right? So you weren't focused on your injury.
This is just what I wrote for this letter.
Yes.
Yes,
And
I wrote
you
this.
spent a lot of time, as we talked about yesterday, planning out what you were going to say, right?
I just wrote it. I just
Wrote it over the course of a day, right?
I think so.
And it's fairly lengthy, right? Front and back, as we talked about.
Okay.
Every single line, right?
Okay.
And so you said that even to drop off a gift, you decided it would be better if I had an extra set of eyes, right?
That's what I wrote.
And you never use the name Fabio, just like in the overhears. Instead, you refer to him as him, right?
I might have. I mean, I'm sure I do. I don't usually say his name.
Right. And neither did Monica, right? The two of you only refer to him as he or him.
I only speak for myself.
Well, in the overhears with her,
That's on
the
you.
two of you did not in 60 hours
I
ever
just
use
speak.
his name, right?
I just speak for myself.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive.
Stricken.
And then you said it irked you to have him think he burns you on time, effort, and partial payment, right? What are you referring to?
Oh, this is referring to the fictitious person.
I see.
Not, yeah, that's what that
So
meant.
you went into some detail on how this fictitious person irked you.
Yes.
And then you said, shortly before the drop, your deliverer and you were going over the impromptu plan, which obviously isn't so impromptu, right?
I wrote that.
Okay.
I wrote that. Your extra stuff, I don't know what you're talking about.
And you said that it was going to be a very loose plan, right?
That's what I wrote.
Okay. And you said that you knew you were going to go towards the Ralphs in her area to figure out the easiest approach to drop it off, right?
That's what I wrote.
And that she texted you or called you and asked you what you were doing and where you were,
That's what I wrote.
right?
That's what I wrote.
And that she said that she was nearby and hoped to see you in a few minutes.
That's what I wrote.
Where you said that it was your usual see each other if we can, while we could, if time permitted, right?
That's what I wrote on this paper.
And then you said the two of you met up at the Target, right? So in this letter, you're talking about, again, on January 23rd, where you and Monica met up at the Target parking lot, right?
I just wrote this on the paper.
Yes, but you're referring to an actual event, right?
I guess we were in the same parking lot together.
Right, and you said you met briefly at the Target parking lot. See this?
I see what I wrote. I see what I wrote.
And you said that you were hoping that you wouldn't give anything away. This big surprise of this extra gift and this card, right?
Whatever it is I wrote on this paper, I wrote it.
Okay. And what you got from her was that everybody was out running errands or school. Right?
Whatever's on this paper, I wrote it.
Okay. So at that point, in the parking lot, you're basically stating that Monica told you everybody was out, right?
No, no, this is.
No?
I already knew this before. I knew this earlier during the day. I knew this earlier during the day.
But
period.
you're talking about a conversation that happened in the parking lot, right?
No, there's no conversation in the parking lot. This is earlier during the day of the information there.
Okay. You see right here where it says we met briefly at the Target Park, and then on the next line, ing lot.
That's what I wrote, but it doesn't mean we met and talked.
I see.
It doesn't say any of that.
So you met at the Target parking lot, but you did not speak, right?
No need to.
No need to speak.
No.
You just get together and be silent.
There was no get together.
Got it. So you wrote this, right?
I wrote the whole thing.
Okay. And then you said all that you got from her was everyone was out running errands or school, right? And that she was going to go buy groceries or something, right?
Well, apparently this is all fictitious, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Objection, move to strike,
Stricken.
non-responsive. That's what you wrote here,
I
right?
did write that.
And then on the next page, you said your chat was very short. So it sounds like there was a conversation, right? Sounded like no one home, right?
That's what's written on the paper.
Or that nobody would be home for an hour or two, right?
That's what I wrote.
And then you said you went to the house, right?
That's what I wrote on the paper. I wrote the entire thing.
Okay. And you said there were no cars in the driveway. As expected, no one seemed there, right?
That's what I wrote.
And then you said there was a guy with you to drop off the package, right? The gift and the card. You needed a guy to come with you to drop this off, right?
That's what was written.
And the guy with you was more nervous than you were, right?
That was what's written on that paper.
And then you wrote, it made everything seem slow. You testified in this case that everything seemed to go really fast, right? When you were at the house committing the crime.
I testified to that.
And then you said, that you somehow got into the house, right? And you said you approached her bed and put the envelope with the jewelry carefully under her pillow, right?
That's what I wrote.
And then you said, my other set of eyes apparently heard something. When you say your other set of eyes, what are you referring to here?
My make-believe set of eyes at the time.
Your second person, right?
It just has nothing to do with what happened, because it's obviously the same thing.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive.
Stricken.
Again, when you say the other set of eyes apparently heard something, you're referring to the second person that you brought with you.
I'm not referring to anything except this letter.
Just before that, you said that the guy with you was more nervous than you, and it made you nervous, right?
That's what I wrote here.
And then you said, eventually inside, I cautiously approached, and your other set of eyes apparently heard something. So you're referring to the other person that you're with, right?
Whatever I wrote on this paper is what I wrote.
Okay. And then you said that you were placing the envelope and you left your line of sight to see if anybody was coming. The other person did, I guess. Correct? And you lost sight of him, meaning the person with you.
This is the letter I wrote.
Okay? And then you said, I wasn't leaving without him and I was ready to leave. I carefully went to the back to find him. I heard a TV outside. No one in the back. TV was on. It went bad from there. Right?
That's what I wrote.
Then you said, all I remember is going down numb. I knew I'd been hit hard by something. Right? That's what you wrote.
I did write that.
So in this story, without actually saying what happened, you are basically telling Monica that Fabio was to blame for his own murder, right?
Yes.
And you said you remember being down and the odd sensation of first not hearing. So you actually go into detail here, right? Right?
I wrote this letter.
And you said I sort of blanked out, kind of like you told the jury that you did in the murder, right?
This is what I wrote.
Okay. With fear, panic, and your last thought was, I'm going to be killed, right?
That's what I wrote.
So you grabbed what you could to defend yourself. In other words, you acted in self-defense in Fabio Sementilli's home. Right?
What you see here before you, I wrote.
And that you let instinct take over, right? You weren't responsible for what you did it instinctually, right?
Whatever you see in this letter, I wrote.
Okay? And then you said you had been struck with something from behind, only catching a glimpse as I was down. So you never even say what you saw, right?
I wrote this letter.
And you said a guy that was standing over you was coming closer. Right?
I wrote this letter.
And you said one asked to protect one's family and home. Right?
I did write this letter.
And then, the next thing you know, I heard the voice of the guy I went to look for. He was inaudible to me and panicked. So, your second set of eyes, right? The deliverer.
This letter I wrote.
And at this point you said, when you woke up, you noticed you were in the kitchen. Weak, tired, and shocked. Confused, right? Terrified. That's what you wrote.
That's
right?
what I wrote.
And you said you wanted to run, but you didn't know what to do, right?
I did write this letter.
And you said you didn't hear anybody behind you because of the TV, and it was a disaster, right?
I did write this letter.
And then you go on. Again, top of page 8, in detail, talking about your adrenaline, right? Realizing what had just happened. Right?
I did write this letter.
And that anyone could walk in. And the person who's with you is panicked and terrified and about to run. Right?
I did write this letter.
And then you wrote, I was a mental wreck. Correct?
I did write this letter.
Okay. And then, again, you went into this detailed explanation about what a disaster this was. Right?
I did write this letter.
And just like you told the jury, you decided to try and make it look like a home invasion. Right?
I did write this letter.
Okay. And so, again, just like you told the jury, you took anything that looked of value to make it appear a robbery. Any gifts, clothes, that you had bought Monica equipment that you gave her for the gym, anything, right?
I did write this letter.
And then you said you saw the plastic bag with the towels in the sink. Did you know that, we talked about this yesterday, that Delia Pacheco Rivera was there that day and that she thoroughly cleaned the house? Did you know that?
I don't even know who she is.
Okay. Did you know that there was, according to her, nothing in the sink when she left?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay. Well, you were there after, right? In reality. Like IRL. In real
After.
life.
Yeah, after. You mean
And
after she left?
You came after she left.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't know that then.
Well, your blood was all over the place, right?
Yes, yes. Well,
And then, I'm sorry, do you have a question?
no,
about
no, you said all over the place. I'm sure my blood was someplace, but I didn't know it was all over.
Really? Because you told us the one thing your attorney did go over with you when you kept denying to him that you were responsible for this crime was the DNA. That he went over the DNA results with you. Remember testifying to that on direct?
I never denied. I only asked to see evidence.
Objection,
I never
just right
denied.
non-responsive.
Stricken.
Again, do you remember testifying to that on direct, that your lawyer went over with you the DNA results?
Eventually, yes.
So you knew that your blood was all over the house, right?
I knew there was blood in the house.
And you talked to Monica about it in the overhears, right? You talked about your blood being in the kitchen. Remember that?
No.
Talked about your blood being in the garage. Remember that?
I don't remember the conversation.
Talked about your blood being in the master bedroom, right?
That one I didn't know.
And so you said that you took the plastic bag with the towels in the sink, right?
That's what I wrote.
And then you were in a daze and you didn't know what you were doing, right? Kind of like you told us.
That's what I wrote in the letter.
And then you go back to the mental chaos, right?
That's what I wrote.
How you calmed yourself down so that you could get out of the house without running into anybody, right?
That's what I wrote.
And then you went into the sorrow and your pain and your sadness and all of those things, right?
That's what I wrote.
Yeah. And you said you could barely keep it together, right?
I did write this letter.
And then you went on to talk about you, yourself, right? What a wreck you were.
I wrote the letter.
And you said that there was no way you could describe your inner pandemonium, right?
I wrote the letter.
Okay. And you talked about trying to be your best, your usual self, right?
I wrote this letter.
And on the next page, you talked about going to the gym, right? And getting people, just as you talked about here, to go with you over to Monica's house, right?
I wrote this letter, yeah.
And you went on about your interactions with various people in some detail, right?
Can we go back a little bit ahead of that? A little further ahead of that? I'm trying to remember all this. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And you said you went into the house with people from the league, right?
I wrote that.
And you said you almost totally broke down, right?
I wrote this, yes, I wrote it.
Yeah. And you go on and on about you, yourself, right? Correct?
I wrote, yeah, I wrote that.
And again, on the next page, the back of the next page, you're again talking about yourself and your inner turmoil, right?
I wrote that.
And that eventually you got to feeling better, right?
I wrote that.
And again, you went on about your inner turmoil, and eventually you picked a place for you and Monica to get together, right? A busy place, and you said you met in a car, right?
That's what I wrote.
And you thought about telling her what had happened, just because you tried to give her a present that she knew nothing about, right?
That's what I wrote.
And then you said, when you saw her, the beauty and the grief popped out, right?
That's what I wrote.
Okay. And then you went on about how you were trying to keep it together, right? Again, all about you, right?
All about me. I wrote it. It's all about me. I wrote it.
And you talked about cheering her up, right? Right?
Right, I wrote the letter.
And that you went from liking Monica very much to falling in love, right?
That's what I wrote.
Okay. And that you were happy, right?
I said, I came to be happy. There you go. Came to be happy.
That's Monica. You did.
So that's what I wrote.
Okay. And you talked about how the two of you went out, did things, and started enjoying your life, right?
That's what I wrote. I did write this.
And then you talked about seeking a lawyer, right? You talked about the police.
I wrote this whole letter, yes.
Okay. And that your panic episodes were becoming more rare, right?
I did write this letter. Yes, I did.
And you talked about that you were trying to cover up at your own peril, right? Based on your past run-ins and experiences with law enforcement.
I did write this
letter. You
letter.
talked about that the two of you discussed.
I did write this letter.
And you talked about your remorse, right?
I did write this letter.
And she said that she understood why you would be paranoid based on your past run-ins with law enforcement.
I did write this letter.
So right here in the letter, you're talking about the fact that Monica was aware, because you discussed it with her and your paranoia, and that she said she understood why, right?
That's what I wrote. I wrote this letter. I did write it.
And then you again go on trying to keep this story from her as long as you could, but at this point you just had to tell her, right?
I did write this letter.
And you talked about how people are looking to see if you have remorse, but you don't care what anybody thinks, right?
I did write this letter.
Okay. And so that's what you wrote to her, was this lengthy apology letter that you then gave to Mr. Levine and his investigator to give to Monica, and you told them that this was what had happened, right?
Which question was this now?
You gave them the letter,
I did give them the letter.
and you asked them to give it to Monica,
I did do that.
right?
I did do that.
So you went into, as we saw, quite a bit of detail, right, in this letter, this apology letter.
I just wrote the letter.
So you're saying you did not?
I did write the letter.
And as we've just looked at, it's numerous pages long, right?
It is.
And you talked about the fact that you agreed that the letter was ridiculous, and I think you said it was trash. That was the word you used on direct, right?
Yes.
So in other words, this very long, detailed letter that you gave to the defense to give to Monica was full of lies.
Legally, it was trash.
Legally.
Yeah,
It's a
I mean,
legal term.
Yeah, I mean, it was not sworn to. It's just trash. Everything
Got
is
it.
trash without being
Just
sworn
trash.
to.
Okay. So what you asked them to give to Monica, expressing your apology, was basically pages and pages and pages of lies.
From a legal standpoint, yes.
I'm sorry?
From the legal standpoint, yes.
Did you go to law school at some point?
Never went to law school.
Oh. So you just, when you say from a legal standpoint, what is that based on?
Classes. I went to a couple of
Classes.
classes. Yeah. Went to a couple of classes.
Uh-huh. Where'd you take your classes?
In Central Texas College.
And so, did Monica's lawyer, Mr. Levine, tell you that your story sounded ridiculous?
No,
He didn't say that.
he didn't say anything about it.
Okay.
He just said he's going to have to turn it over to you,
Uh-huh.
which kind of surprised me.
And so, that was, as we said, your first interview. Which was August 7th, a month after you entered your plea, right?
I'm not sure of the dates.
And where did that particular interview take place?
In jail,
Which jail?
Los Angeles County.
Men's Central?
No,
Where?
it's called NCCF, I think.
Out in the Newhall area. Yes? North County Correctional Facility?
It's NCCS. Yeah, that's all I know.
Was your attorney present during this interview?
The
Mr.
first,
Simran?
the first one?
No, Mr. Simran,
No,
your
the-
lawyer.
Was he there for the first or second one or what?
Your Honor, it seems facts, not an evidence of that.
Overruled.
Was Mr. Simran present with you during this interview that you had with Mr. Levine and Mr. Dawson?
No, I don't think so.
And was it recorded?
As far as I know, no.
Never saw a transcript or anything like that.
No.
Your Honor, we were prohibited from recording.
Very good.
So, did at any point in time Mr. Levine talk to you about how they could come to the court and get an order so that they could record your interview, so there would be some documentation, some proof of a recording that they could later play for the jury? You ever mention that to you? No?
No.
And you didn't ask him to record it so that there would be proof of what you had said in the course of your interview with Mr. Levine for the jury, right?
No.
And so, after that date, did you then have yet another interview with Mr. Levine and Mr. Dawson?
I had a few of them, so I don't remember exactly how many and what dates. I don't have all that info in front of me.
Okay. Do you remember having an interview with Mr. Levine again and Mr. Dawson in custody on February 12th of 2024?
I don't remember the dates.
Okay. If I were to tell you that you had an interview on February 12th of 2024, does that refresh your recollection?
I don't remember the dates, but I remember having interviews.
Okay. How about February 8th? Did you have an interview on February 8th?
I do not remember dates.
At any point in time, were you given a recording to review or a transcript from that February interview?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
There were, I don't know what dates were when, but there were times where I was asked to listen to certain portions of something and ask, I can't even remember what it was.
I'm not asking you about the fact that they played various items of evidence for you.
I don't know if it's
I'm
evidence or not.
asking you whether your interview at the beginning of February with Mr. Levine was recorded.
No, I don't remember it being recorded.
Okay. At any point in time, were you provided with a report to review or notes regarding your February interviews?
I'm always looking at little stuff, but I don't remember specifically what it was.
Again, were you provided with any notes or report to review of your interviews that took place with Mr. Levine and his investigator?
I don't recall what kind of notes and paperwork it was, so I can't say exactly what it was.
Well, were you ever shown this report dated February 12th?
I've never seen this before.
Never seen it before.
No.
So you were never provided with this report that indicates that you were interviewed by Mr.
Your Honor,
Levine.
could we approach, please?
All right.
Again, you've never been shown this report before, correct?
This document? No, I've never seen this document.
You see here that it indicates, as you mentioned, that you were interviewed at
Your Honor, could
NCCF.
I ask who wrote on that report?
Your Honor, I would object to counsel's
Counsel.
interruptions and statements in front of the jury.
You may not.
Again, just as you said, you were interviewed at NCCF on 4 different days. Do you see that?
That's what it says.
We talked about August 7th being the date where you handed over the apology letter, right?
I see what it says here.
You were interviewed September 12th, right, of 2023.
I agree. That's on this paper.
December 6th of 2023.
That's what it says.
And February 8th of 2024, right?
That's what it says on this paper.
And here it indicates that on August 7th, that Mr. Levine and his investigator, Mr. Dawson, introduced themselves to you, and that they had obtained permission from Mr. Simran to interview you, right? And you agreed to talk to them.
I did agree to talk to them.
And at that interview, you gave them the letter that I just went through with you, right?
I guess so, yeah.
And that you claimed you were going to mail it to Monica, right?
Yes, I do remember that.
And you said the reason for writing the letter, the multi-page letter, was so that Monica would understand why the murder happened and what happened, right?
Yes.
And you wrote the letter as an apology so that she would know there was no ill intent on your part, right?
That's what it says on the paper, yeah.
Well, that's what you told them, right? You're not saying they took down something that you didn't say.
Well, they shortened
your words,
they
right?
shortened it. They shortened it.
They shortened it.
Yeah, but that's the gist. That's the gist of it.
Okay. What did they shorten? What did they leave out? Since it wasn't recorded, I wouldn't know. So
No.
tell me what was left out.
I just let.
Sustained.
What was left out?
Motion to strike.
Comments of counsel is not stricken.
Again,
Yes.
what was left out? Tell us, please.
Well, again, verbatim, I don't have the exact verbiage locked in, so I don't know. But the idea was to let her know that it was basically, I did this because I love her.
You did it because you love her.
It was a roundabout way of doing it, yeah. That was the intent of the letter. But it's just, they just shortened the version for this report, I see.
Did the murder because you love her.
That's what I just said.
Okay. What else? When you said it was shortened, what else did you say?
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple because I don't remember the exact verbiage, and that's it. I don't remember the exact verbiage. I don't.
And when you told Mr. Levine and his investigator that it was an apology because there was no ill intent on your part, you murdered Fabio Sementilli. So when you say no ill intent, what is it that you said? Or were those not your words?
They just shortened it to a report, I see. That's what I can see right here.
Again,
Again, what?
move to strike, non-responsive.
Stricken.
You said to Mr. Levine and his investigator that the multi-page letter was meant as an apology, right?
That's what I said.
And that there was no ill intent on your part, correct?
That's what it says here.
Well, my question again is that what you told them?
I don't remember if I said it exactly like that.
If there was a recording, would that help you remember?
Objection, Your Honor, that's been asked and answered. There is no.
Sustained.
There's no recording. So this is all we have. So if you said,
I'm sorry?
Motion to strike, that's it.
Well, there's nothing to strike, but it is inappropriate.
again, if you said there was no ill intent on your part, is that what's written here? Or did you say something different than that?
I don't remember exactly verbatim what was said.
Okay. Do you remember saying something like that?
About there was no ill intent.
Yes.
That was the gist of the letter.
The gist of the letter was that you had no intent.
I'm just answering your question.
Is that what you're saying?
That was the intent of the letter.
Okay.
Counsel,
Dr. Lynn? So, again, did you tell Mr. Levine and his investigator that Monica was always going to deny your affair?
Early on, yes. Oh, no. Did I tell him that? I think I did.
And did you tell them it was because she didn't want to look bad in the eyes of her family?
I believe I said that.
And in the lockup, we also heard a conversation, actually a few conversations between you and Monica talking about that her family might disown her. Remember having that kind of a conversation?
Not really.
Doesn't remember. You don't remember that part.
No.
And then, at that point, did you give a different story of what happened when you murdered Fabio Sementilli?
I gave a different story on this one, on the letter, so yeah, it was a different story.
Okay, so that would be version 2, right?
I don't know what versions you're talking about, but
Well,
there's
the first
different
version
versions.
was the letter, right?
Okay.
So you gave them a second version, right?
I gave them a second version.
Second story, right?
Okay.
You remember that?
Not really, but I'm sure I did.
Okay. And you said that in your interview with Mr. Levine that your lawyer went over the DNA results with you, just like we talked about here, right?
Certain aspects of it, yes.
Okay. Well, he gave you the results,
What does that mean?
where your DNA was found in the house.
Okay, yes.
Do you remember that?
That part, yes.
Okay. And then did you express to Mr. Levine that your attorney didn't show you the bulk of the evidence?
Yes.
Did your attorney,
An objection, the first reference to the attorney is unclear.
again,
Okay, so it's vagueness.
Pardon?
It's vagueness.
Yes.
It's this thing.
did you tell,
Again, comments of counsel are not evidence. That is not to be stricken.
Well,
Did-
There is no answer.
did you tell Mr. Levine that you had not seen the bulk of the evidence?
Yes.
Did your attorney, Mr. Simran, speak to you every time you came to court?
Speak to me?
Yes,
Like hello? Yes.
about the case.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Did you call him at his office on numerous occasions
Oh, I've tried to call him many times.
to discuss the evidence?
I've tried to call him many times.
And did the two of you speak numerous times on the phone about the case?
Not numerous, not compared to the times I've answered.
Okay, so approximately how many times would you say you and your lawyer talked about the case, Mr. Simran?
How many times? In 6 years. Not counting court appearances.
No, let's include those.
Really didn't talk much during court appearances.
How many times did you and your lawyer discuss the case?
I don't want to give an exact number because you'll hold me to it, but it wasn't a lot. It
Give
wasn't
me
a lot.
an estimate.
Estimates seems to make me a liar too, so it wasn't a lot though. It's probably. All right, I'm gonna try to answer this question. 6 times. Maybe. It feels like 20 times.
20 times. Could it be more than that?
It might be, but it feels like about 20.
Feels like.
Minus the court appearances. With the court appearances, you can add those to it too, but there was no real information exchanged.
No real information.
Not really.
Well, based on the no real information, you decided that you might as well enter a plea in this case because you believe that you would be convicted, correct?
Yes.
And when you took your plea in this case, when you entered your plea, you were asked, whether or not you had reviewed the evidence in this case and gone over all of the evidence as well as your rights and privileges before you entered your plea, right?
That was asked of me.
And you said yes, right?
I did.
Council, let me interrupt at this time. Let's take our lunch and recess until 1:30. The admonition applies. You not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else, or form or express any opinion until the cause is finally submitted to you. See you at 1:30.